Hey y'all, and welcome back to another video. Today we have a game with me and my opponent, who I've played 3 times over the board, Tanvi, my opponent Tanvi Borsay. And let's quickly get into it. My opponent is 1700 over the board, which equates to around 2200 online, and I'm 1500 over the board. So she has 200 points on me. I start off the game with d4. My opponent decides to go knight f6, and I go bishop g5. All of very natural stuff. This is my main weapon against knight f6, the Trompowsky attack. My opponent goes g6. I think I've had this in a game versus her before, where after bishop takes ef, I go e3, bishop g7, g3, castles, bishop g2, and my opponent decides to play the move d5, which is admittedly a move. It's definitely a thing that you can play. The main idea here is, will they play d5 or will they play d6? I know I did those in the opposite order, but that's mainly the idea of this. And I'm always threatening some like c4 after d5 with the bishop moving out of the way with this pawn being weak. Either way, d5, knight e2. My opponent decides to go c6, just stop all those c4 ideas. Always very natural. I castle because, I don't know, I think I should castle. My opponent goes bishop to e6. I go knight here, and my main plan here is simply to play like b3 and c4. And I realized at this point that I wasn't thinking properly, which is a weird thing to say, but at this point during the game, I realized that I kind of wasn't, my plan wasn't very good. I didn't really have it very fleshed out after knight d7. And here I thought for a decent bit, and I did end up going with my plan and playing b3. Computer wants knight f4, which is a little ridiculous, or actually c4, which is kind of funny, just like sacking this pawn and then knight f4, and then we're gonna pick up the bishop. I mean, I can see it, but I don't know. Maybe this move happens, and I don't know. This doesn't look entirely appealing. I guess queen c2, but it doesn't look entirely appealing to me, undoubling their pawns like this. So knight f4, knight e6 was never really on my radar, and I didn't decide to play c4 immediately, and instead I prepared it with b3. Of course, very natural. My opponent goes b5, and here is when I had my first like real think of the game, because I knew that b5 was just a terrible like overcommitment of the position. I was more expecting knight b6. I thought that this made more like eons more sense than b5. B5 wasn't even on my radar because b5 just looks so ridiculous, taking space on the queen side, but it's just a massive overcommitment, also weakening this pawn. So I could play c4 here and just immediately bust it open because this pawn is already weak. Instead, I go knight f4 after some thought, which is the best move, targeting the bishop. And basically after the next move, I want to play c4. My opponent goes a5. Another bad move, trying to take space on the queen side. But normally when your opponents do this in these types of positions, it's just a bad plan. And I played c4 pretty quickly because now I realized, of course, after takes, I was going to take on e6 first, takes bc4. My opponent can't really recapture. Also, this pawn is hanging. So probably he has to go like rook c8, but then at the end of the day, cb5, I get queen b3 with this nice little fork, and I should be at least winning a pawn, and the computer thinks I'm winning much more, which is very interesting. But fortunately for my opponent, they didn't really play that way. Instead decided to play bc4. I quickly recapture the pawn, which is the best way to play. The other way to play is knight e6, but this is less good than recaptures immediately. My opponent goes knight b6, and here I'm trying to give them an isolated pawn, so I wasn't really considering the move knight e6 is what the computer is screaming for, saying that this is just much better after like rook b1 stuff, and this pawn isn't really ever hanging because after takes you get this pawn. So I'm doing very well here. It's very interesting. The best move for my opponent right now is the move king h8, which is pretty funny, getting off this queen diagonal, which is pretty funny because there's only there's 3 pawns in the way there. But instead I played cd, And I thought this was smart because what I was doing was I was giving her an isolated pawn, and I thought that I would just have a very nice, pleasant advantage throughout the entire game, and I might be able to um, use that and get a winning position. I thought this was very natural. I wasn't looking at any like insta kills like 96, so I just played this pawn takes. Now I went rook c1 instead of rook b1. I thought this made more sense because the knight is always defended, and I didn't really see any like just put this on the board after rook b1. Like at the very least, my opponent can go rook b8, and then the knight is just always defended. So I didn't really see the point of going rook b1. So instead I went rook c1. It's a completely normal, natural move. It's +1 for me. My opponent goes queen d6. I put my knight on b3 because I thought it wasn't doing very much, and I want to get it over to this very nice c4 square. I was not ever scared of this because like I can even play this now and get my rook to this square. Actually, the computer just wants me to, that move would be nice. Computer just wants me to take with the pawn and have a +3 advantage apparently, which would be pretty useful. Yeah, I guess because I'm just winning this pawn. Yeah, I guess so. Instead, my opponent goes knight c4. Okay, he's trying to put his knight on an outpost. She's trying to put her knight on an outpost, so then so then we have like mutual assured destruction. Knight c5 pretty quickly. I don't really have to spend much time on that. My opponent goes rook here. And I have a very interesting plan here. What I could have done, but what I didn't want to do is like rook b1. Actually, no, this loses. Yes, this loses because of a fork. Yeah, this obviously loses because of a fork. But that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to go rook b1, but that doesn't work. So instead I had an idea. I want to get this knight out of the way. This move might exist in some lines. As you can see, I sacked in exchange, but it's only -0.3, so it's not actually that bad. My idea here, I played rook e1 after a long think. In fact, I should be capturing this bishop with my knight on c5, which is kind of insane. Coming around here and then playing this move e4 because he can't take, because then the knight hangs. And then we get into some like crazy position, but I don't really realize that. I go rook e1. And the idea of this move, you might say, okay, well, what is the rook doing there? It's not really staring at anything, staring at the back of your own pawn. You're not going to like push e4 at some point. I mean, I might push e4, but that's not really the point. The point is now that I want to go bishop f1 and take this out because I don't like my light squared bishop as much as like my knights right now. And I think it's my worst piece. Actually, probably this rook is my worst piece, but I don't think that my light squared bishop is doing anything staring into the back of this pawn. And so I want to trade it off for his good knight. My opponent goes rook b2. And I think for a while here, and I have to calculate a lot. I play bishop f1. I have to calculate a good amount, like rook here, for example, which is kind of scary. Actually, just like queen a4, queen f3 is fine. And the knight has to leave. I also calculated like... I forget what I calculated all of this. It was a while ago. The game was 3 days ago at this point, but I believe I calculated this move. But yeah, this is obviously bad. I can even go like, maybe I can't. I calculated this and like knight f3 and I thought I was better, but I guess just bishop g4. Yeah. Maybe I would have taken first and then played rook there, but either way, my opponent didn't do any of that. My opponent just brought his other rook over there, so I quickly chopped off the knight. The knight was causing me lots of trouble. Pawn takes, and then I had this very nice move. I took the bishop first because the bishop was defending this pawn, and now my opponent has to take like this. Gets a very nice, great move because it was a pretty good move. My opponent takes like this, and then here, and I'm just simply winning a pawn, right? I'm just winning a pawn, but it's a little dangerous because my opponent's always going to play like rook here, trying to get into my second rank. It's always really scary. But actually after rook here, I'm just going to play rook here. Like this is always okay. Actually, knight e4 is just a fork in this case, but at the very least, I can play this move, and I should be better. I should be like much better here. Somehow I'm not. I kind of thought that I would be like almost winning, but I guess not. Whatever, but that's kind of my intention. She doesn't play that. She instead goes this move queen d5, and here I just make a stupid mistake. I was pretty focused during this part of the game, but here I just completely lost all of that. I made some dumb mistake. Of course, you just take this pawn. Just take this pawn, and I'm up a pawn. I'm gonna win. Instead, I take the wrong pawn, and what happens is I take on a5, and I just completely miss rook a8. I just completely miss rook a8. And actually, I'm fighting to survive here. I'm almost getting mated, which is kind of ridiculous. Queen c3. My opponent takes here, and here I spend like 10 minutes on my next move. I spend like so long on this next move. This is an hour-long game, and I do have a decent amount of time. But 10 minutes is a long time to spend on a move. And basically, his idea and her idea here is that she just wants to take on f2 and like win win everything. So first I have to make control that I'm not sure. So rook f1 comes naturally, but it gets very dangerous here after my opponent goes queen f5 after a long think, and now I can't defend this. I can't defend this, and you might think this is a free pawn. It's not. It's not. If my opponent went queen f3, then this would be a free pawn because he can't take because of this, and my opponent's actually getting mated here. But instead, my opponent finds the best way, which is queen f5, and I have to really try to come back here. I calculated, I tried to find like as many ways as possible. I try to get my queen to the background. I try to go like rook here or something, like try to get in, but nothing actually works. I also tried calculating 96, which is the third line of the engine, minus 0.7. I mean, that's pretty bad. I don't want to get into that. There's two things that work. Queen e1 somehow works. I calculated this, and I genuinely, I did not see everything. After rook here, I have e4, crazy move, and my opponent has to like come here, and then queen c3, and then my opponent can't take because of that. So now here, and then I'm all right. Pretty tricky to see. I wasn't really looking that far into queen e1, but what I found was I found something pretty decent, pretty like that. Where I play this move queen c4, but I just said that wasn't possible because now this pawn on e6 is defended, right? Pawn on e6 is defended, and let's say after here, then takes, I simply get mated after here, and this move. So I simply get mated, so that's not it. But after my opponent takes on f2, I found this amazing move that took me so long. But I thought I was lost here for the longest time. But I found this amazing move. I found queen takes a2. And I realized that my opponent's rook was pinned to his queen, pinned to her queen, and now I'm just going to be getting everything back into control. And my opponent is forced to take on a2. She can't really do anything else. Everything else is losing. Takes, and luckily here I'm able to get away with the bank, and I'm able to survive here, which is very nice from a winning position. I go rook b1, not the best move. I'm just trying to like get in. I probably should have played rook d1 or something, like rook here. Maybe I'll try to push this pawn. I'll try to get it down the board. Whatever. Rook b1. My opponent goes here. I come back and defend my pawn. Here, king up. Check. Here, takes. This is a simple draw. It's a 4-on-4, but I'm playing for a win, so I gotta keep going. We play a couple more moves out. I get my king up here. She comes back with her bishop. I come back with my knight. Here. She keeps trying to mess with my my pawns, and yeah, here we just agree to a draw because this is a very simple drawn position, and there's no need to play this out. We both know what we're doing. This game was a pretty intense game with both of us playing. Let's see the accuracy. Both of us playing at over 93% accuracy, me playing 0.4% better than she did, but it's still a very, very close game. And it's very unfortunate that I took the wrong pawn and I messed that up from like a +2 position or something, which is rough, but sometimes it happens. And that was this game. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found this instructive, entertaining, all of the above. That's it for today. Remember to like, subscribe, do all the normal things YouTubers tell you to do. Good evening and good night.